You don't need a new year, a new month, or a perfect moment. You just need one focused hour a day to build a life you're proud of. Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a moment in every life when you stand at the crossroads of what is and what could be. That moment is quiet. It doesn't come with trumpets or applause. It arrives gently in silence, whispering to your soul that there is more to this life, more than survival, more than repetition, more than merely existing. It calls you to rise, to reflect, to become. And that transformation doesn't begin with a massive leap. It starts with just 1 hour a day. 1 hour, 60 minutes. That's all it takes to begin rewriting the story of your life. Not tomorrow, not next week, not someday, today. We think we need the perfect moment, the perfect plan, or a miracle to turn our lives around. But what if I told you that all you need is 60 minutes a day to step out of the noise, to nurture your spirit, to build your dream, to reclaim your identity, and to breathe life into the person you were born to be? Today, I want to speak to the part of you that still believes. The part of you that may be buried under pain, disappointment, or fear. The part of you that's still alive with hope, yearning for change. 1 hour a day is not about finding time. It's about choosing yourself. Consistently, patiently, and unapologetically. Because in that 1 hour, a new version of you is waiting. 1 hour of solitude can reconnect you to your soul. Solitude is not loneliness. It's a sacred space where the noise of the world fades and you can finally hear yourself. In solitude, you meet the real you, not the version that performs, not the version that pleases, but the version that breathes truth. 1 hour a day in this space becomes the medicine your spirit has been craving. We spend so much time rushing from one thing to another, constantly responding to the world's demands. But when was the last time you responded to your own needs? When was the last time you sat in silence, without distraction, and asked yourself, how am I really? That 1 hour gives you permission to pause the chaos and return to your center. In that stillness, emotions rise. The ones you've buried under responsibilities, under smiles, under silence. You might feel grief, joy, anger, or gratitude sometimes all at once. But that's not a sign of weakness. That's the voice of your soul finally being heard. You begin to understand that healing doesn't always require doing, it often requires listening. Solitude invites reflection. You start to revisit your values, your choices, your path. And in that gentle review, you realize how often you've betrayed yourself just to belong, how often you've silenced your intuition to be accepted. But in this 1 hour, you start reclaiming those lost pieces, one truth at a time. It becomes your sacred ritual. A daily reunion with the most important relationship in your life, the one with yourself. You begin to trust your own voice again, to honor your feelings without judgment, and to walk through your inner world with compassion instead of criticism. The world teaches us to fear solitude, to equate it with being unwanted or forgotten. But it is in solitude that you realize your own worth. You no longer need validation to feel visible. You see yourself, and that is enough. You matter, not because others say so, but because you have decided to believe it for yourself. This hour becomes your mirror. Not the kind that reflects appearances, but the one that shows your essence. You begin to understand the language of your soul, what energizes it, what drains it, what lights it up. And this knowledge becomes power. With each passing day, the hour in solitude becomes less of a luxury and more of a necessity. It's where you gain clarity about your boundaries, your dreams, and your healing. You stop rushing through life and start engaging with it deeply and intentionally. You notice how your breathing slows, how your body softens, how your thoughts quiet down. It feels like coming home to a place you forgot existed. It feels like truth. And even if the world remains the same, you begin to change. In the quiet, you start forgiving yourself for the times you didn't know better, for the times you gave too much, for the times you forgot your worth. Forgiveness becomes a soft cloak you wear in this hour. And you rise from it lighter, stronger, more whole. The hour of solitude begins to shape your days. You become more grounded in conversations, more present in your work, more open in your love. People notice the shift in your energy, but they won't always know what changed. What changed is you. And while others chase noise to escape themselves, you have found peace in being alone. Not because it's easy, but because it's honest. Not because it's perfect, but because it's real. The more you return to that hour, the more you become anchored in your truth. You begin to realize that external chaos cannot destroy internal clarity. You've built it hour by hour, breath by breath, moment by moment. And no matter what life throws your way, you know how to return to yourself. This 1 hour doesn't erase your pain, but it teaches you how to hold it with grace. It doesn't guarantee answers, but it helps you live into the questions. And somewhere in the silence, you remember you are not lost, you are learning to be found. 1 hour of learning can unlock a life you never imagined. The world changes for those who choose to learn. And learning isn't reserved for classrooms or certificates, it's a posture of the heart. 1 hour a day of learning with curiosity and humility begins to open doors that once felt bolted shut. It creates new possibilities where you only saw limitations. You don't need all the answers. You just need the courage to start asking better questions. Why do I believe this? What else is possible? How can I grow through this? These questions begin to transform the way you think, the way you see the world, and most importantly, the way you see yourself. Learning isn't always about facts and figures. Sometimes it's about unlearning what kept you stuck. It's about releasing beliefs you inherited, patterns you never questioned, identities you never chose. In that hour, you begin to sift through what belongs and what needs to go. It becomes a sacred excavation, not to judge the past, but to free yourself from it. You begin to replace shame with understanding, fear with awareness, helplessness with wisdom. Every page you read, every podcast you absorb, every journal entry you write becomes a stepping stone toward a new version of you. The hour you spend learning slowly rewires your mind. You begin to think differently, and from those thoughts, new actions are born. Suddenly, you're no longer reacting to life, you're designing it. With intention, with vision, with strategy. Knowledge is empowerment, but not just the kind that impresses others, the kind that liberates you. You begin to recognize your patterns, your emotional triggers, your strengths. You become your own coach, your own guide, your own mentor. And what felt overwhelming yesterday begins to feel manageable today. You stop saying, I can't, and start asking, how can I? That shift seems small, but it changes everything. Because learning doesn't just build skill, it builds belief. You start seeing opportunity in adversity, growth in mistakes, power in vulnerability. You become the kind of person who doesn't wait for circumstances to improve you. Create your own conditions for transformation. In that 1 hour, your spirit ignites. You start dreaming again, not in a fantasy way, but in a practical, grounded, courageous way. You realize you are capable of more than you've been taught to believe. And that realization becomes a daily revolution. You don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to be willing to grow 1 hour at a time. And slowly, the person who felt stuck begins to evolve. Quietly, consistently, profoundly. You begin to walk into rooms with confidence and awe because you know everything, but because you know you can learn anything. That self-trust is priceless. It becomes your armor, your fuel, your edge. Others might wonder how you've changed, but you'll know it was the hours no one saw, the times you showed up for yourself when no one was watching. The choice to grow when it was easier to stay the same. Your dreams begin to expand, your conversations deepen, your impact multiplies. And it all traces back to the decision to give yourself 1 sacred hour to become. Because once you commit to learning, there is no ceiling to your growth. There is no limit to your becoming. 1 hour a day, 1 book, 1 idea, 1 breakthrough at a time can unlock a life you never imagined. 1 hour of movement can awaken the power within. The body carries stories the mouth never speaks. It holds pain, memory, trauma, and resilience. And in a world that teaches us to disconnect from ourselves, to numb discomfort, to chase productivity, there is power in coming home to your body. 1 hour of movement each day becomes that homecoming. Movement isn't just about fitness, it's about freedom. It's about reclaiming parts of yourself you forgot. You had the strength in your legs, the rhythm in your breath, the courage in your chest. When you move, you remember that you are still here. And that reminder can change everything. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need the latest gear or the fastest pace. You just need to begin. Whether it's stretching in silence, walking in nature, dancing to your favorite song, or pushing yourself in a workout, you are reminding your body that it matters. And that changes your entire relationship with yourself. We often wait to feel better before we move. But sometimes movement is what makes us feel better. One step, one stretch, one breath at a time, your body starts to release what it's been holding on to. The grief, the rage, the stress, the pressure. And in its place, a new energy is born. Movement teaches you presence. You can't worry about tomorrow or regret yesterday when you are connected to your breath, to your limbs, to your heart beating in real time. In that hour, you escape nothing, but you avoid nothing either. You face your truth, and you face it in motion. That 1 hour becomes more than just exercise. It becomes your act of defiance. Your declaration that your body is not just a machine for tasks or a target for criticism. It is sacred, it is resilient, it is yours. And when you move, you honor it not for how it looks, but for how it feels. You begin to realize how much your body does for you, how it carries you even when your mind is weary, how it stands when your soul is breaking, how it breathes even when life feels suffocating. That awareness turns frustration into gratitude. Your body is not your enemy, it is your ally. The more you move, the more you heal. Emotionally, mentally, spiritually, movement becomes your therapy, your prayer, your rebellion. And in that sacred hour, you stop running from yourself and start running toward who you're becoming. Your posture changes, your energy shifts. You begin to hold yourself with more confidence than no, because you've reached some ideal, but because you've committed to showing up for yourself, for your health, for your future. That daily hour might seem small, but over time it builds something unshakable. You stop shrinking, you stop hiding, you start standing tall in rooms that once intimidated you. Not because anything outside of you changed, but because something inside of you awakened. You no longer move from punishment, you move from love. You no longer chase perfection, you choose connection. You no longer see your body as a project, you honor it as a temple. And that shift transforms how you show up in every area of your life. Movement becomes your anchor when the world feels chaotic. It becomes your release when your heart feels heavy. It becomes your ritual when your soul feels disconnected. And slowly you become whole through motion, through sweat, through stillness. You stop waiting for others to save you. You realize you are capable of rescuing yourself. Every time you move, you say to your inner child, I've got you. Every time you breathe through the discomfort, you whisper, I'm not giving up. That 1 hour rewrites your story from defeat to resilience, from exhaustion to power, from disconnection to embodiment. And you begin to walk differently, not just physically, but spiritually, because now you know you are alive and you are capable of so much more than you believed. 1 hour of creation can rewrite your legacy. There is something divine about creating, not because it makes you special, but because it reminds you that you already are. 1 hour of creation a day becomes a rebellion against everything that tried to silence your voice, against every moment you were told you weren't enough. Creation isn't only for artists. It's for anyone who has a story, a dream, a message, or a vision inside them longing to be expressed. Whether it's writing, building, cooking, painting, designing, or speaking, creation is how we turn pain into purpose and ideas into impact. 1 hour a day spent creating shifts you from consumption to contribution. You stop scrolling through other people's lives and start building your own. You stop waiting to be chosen and start choosing yourself. That's where transformation begins. Your creations don't need to be perfect, they need to be yours. They need to be real, raw, honest. That 1 hour becomes your invitation to tell the truth, not just to the world, but to yourself. And truth has a frequency. Once you speak it, something inside you shifts. You realize that you don't need permission to begin. You only need willingness. Willingness to show up messy, to try again, to create not for applause, but for healing, to create not for recognition, but for alignment. That's when it becomes sacred. Creation becomes your mirror. It shows you your fears, your gifts, your insecurities, and your courage. It reflects the parts of you that are still growing and the parts that have already bloomed. It becomes your dialogue with the universe. In this daily hour, you begin to find your voice. Not the one the world shaped, but the one that was buried beneath expectations and fear. You start to reclaim that voice. One brushstroke, one word, one idea at a time. And the more you create, the more you remember who you are. You stop asking, will they like it? And start asking, does it feel true? You stop seeking validation and start embracing authenticity. That one shift unleashes creativity you didn't know you had. And from that creativity, legacy is born. You begin to see your work as more than a product, it becomes a message. A message to the world that says, I was here. I felt this. I lived this. I chose to create instead of crumble. And that message lives long after you're gone. Each creation becomes a seed. You may not see it bloom today, but trust that it's planting something eternal. You may not know who it will touch, but someone will one day find hope in what you built during that one quiet hour. And even on the days when doubt screams louder than inspiration, you show up anyway. Because now you understand consistency is louder than talent. Devotion is louder than fear. Your legacy is not built in moments of lightning, but in steady sparks of fire. That hour becomes your act of resistance in a world that profits off your silence. It becomes your space to reimagine, to rebuild, to reconnect. And each time you create, you remember you were never just meant to survive. You were meant to express, to expand, to evolve. You no longer see yourself as just one person. You become a ripple, a possibility. A blueprint for what happens when someone refuses to stay silent, when someone dares to create something beautiful from the broken pieces. 1 hour a day, one creation at a time. And slowly your legacy is no longer something you chase, it's something you live. It's written in your courage, carved into your consistency, and echoed in every person you inspire to begin. The hour that rebuilds you. It's easy to believe that change requires a revolution. That transformation demands a dramatic turning point, a grand gesture, a sudden miracle. But sometimes change whispers. Sometimes it knocks softly at the door of your routine. And all it asks for is 1 hour. 1 hour a day may not sound like much to the world, but to your spirit, it's everything. 1 hour of intention becomes the bridge between the life you endure and the life you were born to live. It becomes the anchor that steadies you, the mirror that reveals you, and the fire that awakens you. That 1 hour becomes the time you stop existing for others and start showing up for yourself. It's the hour where you stop chasing what's expected and start remembering what's true. The hour where silence becomes your sanctuary, movement becomes your medicine, learning becomes your freedom, and creation becomes your voice. In a world that is constantly pulling you in 1,000 directions, asking you to be more, do more, prove more, one sacred hour is your rebellion, your promise, your prayer. It's where you lay down the weight of too late and pick up the power of right now. You're not waiting for the perfect time anymore. You're making time sacred. You're not hoping life slows down to catch your breath. You're choosing to pause, to heal, to grow. And in doing so, you're telling your soul, I'm not giving up on you. Because real change doesn't always come with applause. Sometimes it comes in quiet hours that no one sees. In small choices that seem invisible to others but to you, they become the foundation of something unshakable. 1 hour a day is not about finding time. It's about honoring yourself enough to make it. It's about believing you are worthy of that hour. Worthy of healing, worthy of learning, worthy of growing, worthy of creating something that leaves a legacy. And maybe that hour is when you finally hear yourself again, the version of you that didn't give up. that still believes in something more, that knows the difference between simply surviving and truly living. So give yourself that hour, not just once, not just when you're broken, but every single day. Let it be your beginning. Let it be your rebuild. Let it be the place where you meet the version of you that is still waiting to rise. 1 hour a day may not change the world overnight, but it will change your world. And once your world changes, everything around you begins to shift. This isn't just about time. This is about truth. About remembering that inside you is the power to rebuild, renew, and rise. 1 hour at a time. One choice at a time. One day at a time. Because your life doesn't change by chance. It changes when you decide to show up even when no one's watching. It changes when you give yourself what the world cannot take away: your intention, your presence, your hope. 1 hour a day can change your life. And your life changed can change the world.